Hello, friends. The 997th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. Russian troops continue raids across the northern Ukrainian border. The Deep State Telegram channel reported on Russia's advance in the border village of Sotnitsky Kozachak in the Kharkiv region. Judging by the map, it is completely occupied. Let me remind you that the Russians already entered this village on the border with the Belgorod region in July. Also yesterday, it became known that a Russian sabotage and reconnaissance group entered the villages of Gremyach and Muravi in the Chernihiv region. The State Border Service of Ukraine partially confirmed this information. Border guards note that the Russians did not cross the bridge itself, and this territory is actually cut off by rivers and no one lives there. Also, due to constant flooding, it is impossible to build proper fortifications there. The State Border Service states that it controls this area. Yesterday, Deep State published a video of the capture of Russian soldiers who had previously broken through to Kupiansk. According to the Telegram channel, after the breakthrough, efforts were made to defeat the enemy who was storming the city. The Russians tried to repeat the assault along the same route they had found, which was somewhat obvious. But the units were ready to meet the enemy, and already in the area of their accumulation and formation in battle formations, they began to fly. The assault never happened, wrote Deep State. At the same time, it is premature to talk about the complete suppression of the breakthrough, since conflicting information is coming in. On the one hand, the enemy's breakthrough is blocked by the Ukrainian garrison, and the remnants of the Russian landing force that broke through are gradually being knocked out. But there is also information that Russian forces are allegedly accumulating at the sugar factory. Also, after the latest update of the Deep State map, the gray zone of the breakthrough has not decreased, but on the contrary, has increased slightly. I think the situation with the breakthrough to Kupiansk will become clearer in the next few days. In the Bakhmut direction, according to Ukrainian experts, the enemy advanced along a number of forest belts south of Yevhenii and occupied part of the Stupki tract in an area up to 3.8 kilometers wide and up to 1.5 kilometers deep. In the Klishchiivka area, Russian troops advanced in an area up to 4 kilometers wide and up to 1.5 kilometers deep. Along the railway from Andriivka to Zelenopilya, the enemy occupied an area up to 2.35 kilometers wide. In Chasiv Yar itself, an attack by the Russian army in the Yevhenii microdistrict is recorded. The video shows a small infantry group of the enemy taking up a position in the basement of a residential building in the west of the microdistrict, next to the city park. The situation in the Kurakhove area continues to deteriorate for the Ukrainian armed forces. The Russians are pressing from the northern, southern, and eastern sides, reports the Ukrainian military telegram channel Deep State. To the north of the city, Russian troops continue to try to gain a foothold in the village of Sontsivka and completely occupy it. They are also putting pressure on Novosladivka, but the greatest attention of the northern face of Kurakhove is focused on the Berezhki-Ilinka section. Despite the statements and denials based on false reports sent to the top, Ilinka is occupied, and individual infantry units are already visually visible even in the Berezhki area, the report says. According to Deep State, the task of the Russian army in this area is to reach Stary Terny in order to block the main road that goes to Kurakhove from the west. The eastern outskirts of Kurakhove are constantly under pressure from the Russians, who are carrying out mechanized assaults. It is reported that they are trying to fly to the outskirts of the city, parachute infantry, which is trying to gain a foothold in the private sector. One of the latest assaults ended in success and a foothold in school number 3, but at the moment it is known that the building has been cleared of the enemy, Deep State adds. He also draws attention to the situation in the area between Dalny and Uspanivka, where Ukrainian troops are under threat of encirclement. The formed pocket is under threat of future control by the enemy, because the Russians are very persistently climbing through Dalny to Uspanivka, having successes. The latter village plays an important role in logistics and overall control of the situation in the pocket. And once again, we have a problem with reports to the top that do not correspond to reality, which is most likely the reason for the lack of attention to the problem of the flanks in this place. The situation is deteriorating, and one day everyone may wake up and see that the enemy has reached Uspanivka, but it may be too late, the report says. To the south of Kurakhove, according to Deep State, the situation is unchanged. The Russian army is trying to advance along the Yasna Poliana Maximivka section towards the H-15 Zaporizhia-Donetsk highway. In the future, this may result in the closure of logistics, taking the highway at least under fire control, Deep State reports. Meanwhile, Ukrainian military officials are reporting a threat of encirclement of Ukrainian armed forces south of Kurakhove. An officer with the call sign Alex says that Ukrainian troops have been encircled but are continuing to resist because the line of settlements between Kateryniivka and Uspanivka, which is now in a semi-encirclement, is on high ground. But the question remains, is it worth continuing to do this, or is it time to take certain actions? Alex asks, implying a retreat. The Russians, he says, are rushing toward Uspanivka and Konstantinopolsky to cut off supply routes all the way to Kateryniivka. If Russian troops enter Uspanivka, very serious problems will begin, since the Ukrainian armed forces will have to organize logistics through fields that have become impassable due to the weather. Fighter Bunyatov also writes about logistics problems for Ukrainian troops in the pocket that has formed. It is not very reasonable to expect that the entire length of the neck of the pocket formed in the Kurakhove direction serves as a logistical route, writes Bunyatov, and suggests simulating a situation with heavy rain when the dirt roads are soaked and there are only 2 kilometers left before the asphalt logistical route is blocked and the Russians break through to Uspanivka. After that, 7 villages are surrounded. If they are lucky, a small part will leave on foot through the fields, the rest will be shot or taken prisoner. We are keeping silent about the issue of equipment and property worth millions of dollars, writes Bunyatov. According to the Deep State map, less than a kilometer remains for Russian troops to reach the highway in the Uspanivka area. After that, only dirt roads will remain to supply the Ukrainian armed forces in the semi-cauldron, which, as we can see, is what the Ukrainian military fears. Elon Musk said that Zelensky has a great sense of humor, commenting on his words that Trump will not be able to force Ukraine to sit down at the negotiating table with Russia. We are an independent country, and I think that during this war, our people and I personally proved in negotiations with the United States and Trump and Biden and other European leaders that the rhetoric of sit down and listen does not work with us, Zelensky said. He has an amazing sense of humor, Musk responded to this and put a smiley face. Let me remind you that Musk now, according to American media, has great influence on the elected U.S. President Donald Trump, including on foreign policy issues and personnel appointments. Friends, this channel exists solely thanks to your support. If you have the opportunity and desire to support the channel, I will be very grateful to you. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.